Talofa lava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suisuiki. Coming up, Greenpeace could be facing consequences following a protest. Also,
I hope people go, oh yeah, Papua New Guineans are actors. Papua New Guineans do have fun stories, interesting stories.
A filmmaker from PNG reflects on her creative journey. And
it's always been my testimony that everywhere that I've ever been was because of Fire Night Dancing.
We meet the 5-time Siva Afi world champion. After boarding a ship to initiate an anti-mining protest last year, Greenpeace could be removed from the UN deep-sea mining body. The boarded vessel, owned by the Metals Company, was carrying out research in the Pacific's Clarion-Clipperton zone. The company claims the actions disrupted research and was dangerous. The UN's International Seabed Authority 29th Council meeting is underway in Kingston, Jamaica, where this week governments will discuss the protest that Greenpeace took part in. Caleb Fotheringham spoke with Louisa Casson, who heads Greenpeace's international Stop Deep Sea Mining campaign, about the protest.
This Friday, governments will have the opportunity to talk about the peaceful protest that Greenpeace undertook in the Pacific Ocean last year, where we peacefully disrupted the industry's efforts to go out to sea and collect data to finalise a deep-sea mining application. This would be the world's first deep-sea mining application, and it's very controversial because there are no rules in place that regulate deep-sea mining, so we are risking the possibility of entirely unregulated deep-sea mining in the oceans. We really hope that governments focus on the imminent threat to the marine environment that deep-sea mining causes, and while we know that there have been calls from industry to look at measures that governments may want to put in place to limit peaceful protests, including in future, we hope they withstand those calls from industry. Peaceful protest is a fundamental human right. We're not surprised that people around the world are rising up and resisting deep sea mining on land and at sea. And it's really important that, because we are talking about the global commons, that people are able to fully participate and to protest when they decide that's necessary.
Could Greenpeace be stripped of its observer status when it does get discussed?
We really hope that governments choose to take no measures to limit peaceful protest. The observer status of organisations like Greenpeace International is something that the whole of the ISA assembly, so that should be all governments, monitors and has a decision on. So we hope that this Friday there are no decisions taken to limit civil society participation or try and limit future protests. But obviously we have seen worrying signs already from the International Seabed Authority Secretary General, who issued immediate measures during the protest itself, which appeared to be without legal basis because he was using measures that are supposed to be designed for when deep sea mining companies and contractors are risking harm to the marine environment. So Greenpeace had to point out to him that we are not a deep sea mining company and our protesters in kayaks were not causing harm to the marine environment. It's a slightly absurd situation, and we hope that governments bring sense to the debate and really focus on what is the imminent harm and what is the real controversy, which is the prospect of the world's first deep sea mining application coming at the feet of governments this year.
Right, because the Metals Company, almost directly after Greenpeace did its protest, said it was dangerous, it was illegal. What's your response to that?
Well, the Metals Company took Greenpeace to court in the Dutch courts because we use a Dutch-flagged vessel. So they used the legal recourse that is available to them. And the judgment was actually really interesting. It decided that Greenpeace climbers who were on the crane at the back of the ship did need to come down. They'd been up there for about 5 days. But that actually there is a fundamental human right to protest, including protesting at sea. And the judge actually really criticised the company's characterisation of their expedition as independent science. She said the idea this was independent science was out of the question because this is a deep sea mining company who have a vested interest commercially in the outcome, and that she hadn't seen any evidence that this was dangerous, that, peaceful protest can involve and often does involve disruption to companies' interests, but that doesn't mean that it's not legitimate, and it doesn't mean there is a human right to peaceful protest.
A Papua New Guinean filmmaker who grew up in New Zealand says the US helped her to find her voice and own her identity as a biracial woman. Her film Butterfly premieres in New Zealand at Māoriland Film Festival in Otaki this weekend and will play in Los Angeles on March 26. Alicia Foon spoke with the director and writer of the film, Veyalu Ella Unsworth, who describes making the film as a deeply healing and empowering process.
Butterfly Butterfly is a short narrative film that we made. It's about a young woman from Papua New Guinea and America, and she basically is torn between her secret dream of becoming a makeup artist, but she's also been raised in a very religious family. She sort of has to navigate her Indigenous roots and beliefs with her religious beliefs, and also her American Western beliefs and experiences. So I guess the question is she going to follow her dream to become a makeup artist?
What are the main kind of themes and takeaways that you hope people grasp from this film?
I think first and foremost, I hope people go, how cool, how exciting, there's a Papua New Guinean woman on the screen and it's from her point of view. That's because when I was growing up in Aotearoa, I never saw Papua New Guineans on screen. So that's probably the first thing. I hope people go, oh yeah, Papua New Guineans are actors. Papua New Guineans do have fun stories, interesting stories. I hope it also inspires Pacific Islanders, Indigenous people to tell their stories too, especially women, because we just don't ever get to see many of these stories. Here in the States, it's more rare. In Aotearoa, I think there's a lot of amazing content coming out, and it has been coming out for a while, but there still aren't many Papua New Guinean stories. So that's probably the main thing. And I hope it does inspire other people to tell their stories. And I hope it sort of sheds a light on the experience of trying to navigate different worlds, of trying to kind of reconcile your Indigenous beliefs with your Western ideas, and then you add another layer of your religion. It can be very confusing, and that's been my experience personally. So that was like one of the reasons why I wanted to write this story and go there.
What has your journey been like so far as a Papua New Guinean filmmaker, particularly based in the US? And when it comes to identity, what have you had to do on your personal journey to reconcile with some of those Western beliefs?
Oh, my journey as a Papua New Guinean woman has been it's been different to a lot of Papua New Guinean women's, I guess. And I say that actually because I grew up in the diaspora, and it took me so long to realize that was going to be that's a very different experience to growing up in Papua New Guinea. It seems so obvious now, but when in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and you don't know any other Papua New Guineans, you keep comparing yourself to your family back in Papua New Guinea. And that basically has set the stage to my journey, which is feeling very insecure about my cultural identity, feeling like I was never enough, feeling afraid to actually write stories or tell stories about my experience or my perspective. And I honestly felt like my perspective wasn't very important, and I very much shied away from telling my stories for a long time. And this film that we made, Butterfly Butterfly, it's 8 minutes long, and it is the first time I've ever properly put myself out there and said, this is who I am. I'm Papua New Guinean, and these are some of the experiences that I have, and others who live in the Papua New Guinea diaspora have as well. And it was really hard. From the crafting point of view, it was difficult because trying to squeeze that experience into 8 minutes is crazy because you want so much more time. And from a personal point of view, in terms of overcoming some of those psychological beliefs, I think I'd call it internalized racism, feeling like being Papua New Guinean was not as important as other cultures or other voices. So I had to kind of push through those little voices that I had in my head from the little me saying, you're not important, and kind of pushing those aside and saying, actually, everybody's stories are important and you have stories, so you can do this, you can tell it. I think the hardest part was overcoming those old beliefs and those old thoughts. So it actually was an incredibly amazing experience to make this film, because I was confronting some of my fears. And actually, I think for the two actors, I have two Papua New Guinean actors Regina Pandey and Graham Pandey, we very much bonded over the experience because they too had faced some of their insecurities and experiences of being Papua New Guinean in America, where there are just very few Papua New Guineans. So much of the time you feel invisible.
It sounds like this film really helped you find your own voice. And in doing that, it seems like you're now empowering others.
Oh, I really hope that my journey and this film helps to empower others. And I like that. That makes me really happy to think that if there's one or two or more people who hear my journey or watch this film, that they feel empowered to be able to share their stories or feel seen. I mean, I think that's one of the things I love about filmmaking, is that when you see a film that really speaks to you and expresses an experience that you have, you feel seen and you feel connected, and that is so empowering. Making this film was empowering, and I think making it in America was empowering because I feel like culturally America is so different from New Zealand. It is so big. There are so many people, and everybody is kind of making noise to say, this is important, this is important. And it's very different to New Zealand, where we don't tend to be, look at me so much. So it was very confronting at first, but it actually ended up being very liberating because I was able to learn from a lot of people who were speaking on topics like cultural identity and what it means to be in the diaspora, what is story sovereignty, the experience of being mixed race. All the racial politics here and the population size means that there's incredible conversations and dialogue being had, and that actually helped me to build my confidence when it comes to talking about my own experience. So whether I could have made this in another country back in New Zealand, I'm sure I could, but I want to give some credit to America for helping me to find my voice.
Cook Islands paediatric surgeon Dr. Kiki Mawate has been appointed Chair of Whatu Whānau Ola, New Zealand's Pacific Health Senate. It's an independent advisory board which provides strategic advice to Te Whatu Ora, Health New Zealand. He takes over from Sir Colin Tukuitonga, who resigned in December because he was unhappy with the new coalition government. Caleb Fotheringham spoke with Dr. Mawate and began by asking him how he feels about his new appointment.
It's quite pleasing that we do have the ability at the level that we are contributing to the health system to have a Pacific voice. And so that's where I think it's actually quite good to be involved. For a few of us who have been in the health sector for a long time, I think it's quite exciting. I think it'll give some perspective of what the past has looked like and where the journey has come and what potentially could be a fun journey going forward.
What do you view as the main challenges for Pacific people when it comes to accessing healthcare in New Zealand?
The biggest factor for Pacific, and I suspect for the vast majority of people, is actually poverty. And I mean poverty in the broadest sense of the word, that people won't access healthcare if they can't live what we might call a normal life, where having food on the table, being able to have a warm house, being able to send the kids off to school, having all the other things that you need to enjoy life, and then of course afford the healthcare system that we have, not just afford in terms of monetary terms, but also have the necessary knowledge about how the healthcare actually works, just the understanding of a whole lot of things. It's about health literacy, it's about being confident in knowing what the health system's about and knowing what they can, not so much demand, but what they are able to be provided by the state, what's able to be provided in the private sector. So there's a whole host of things. So I think the poverty stuff, poverty issues, is always going to disadvantage any population group that's at the lower end of the rung, and the majority of our people are there.
Dr. Colin Tukuitonga, he was previously in your role. He resigned because he had no confidence that the government was going to treat Pacific people well. That's what he said. Is that a concern for you as well?
No, I think Sir Colin is passionate about how he thinks about where the pressures are and what his thinking is. And I, while I agree to a certain extent that there'll be challenges in the system, I don't agree that the government comes in purposely to disadvantage a particular group of people. So, the government is the government. They're elected in place, and our role is to work with the government and work with our communities to be effective. The political stances that people make are personal choices. That doesn't play a role in how I think about it.
He said that he wanted to be free to speak up and speak out. Do you think this position that you hold will limit what you can criticise about the government?
No, I think there are ways of doing this, and my role, in my view of life, is to be pretty direct with. And the government doesn't mean you come out in the media and talk about the whole government, because it isn't about just the whole government, and there are processes to follow. The dialogue is with our team. Make sure we're clear about what we're trying to do. Have the support of our clinical lead with Margarita, and of course you've got the CEO and the process to go through. And the minister is not far away. The minister has a direct line to any of us, and we have a direct line to the minister at some stage. So I think it's a process to follow. It's not preempting what you want to do. It is actually about looking what is the best outcome we can provide for our people, and that's Pacific and the whole of New Zealand. We have a contribution to make, and we need to be effective about it, and we need to be sensible about it. I don't see that my role, if I do feel that I'm ineffective, then sure. Is the media the right thing to go through? We'll judge that at the time of whether it's a challenge at the time or something that I'm not happy with, then there's something that will be discussed.
The five-time fire knife dancing world champion Mikaele Oloa credits Siva Afi for his life successes. Oloa has nearly 20 international titles under his belt, attributing to his impressive fire dancing skills. Tiana Hexton caught up with Oloa while he was conducting a Siva Afi workshop for youth in Mangere. He shared his story of how he became a renowned world champion.
In my journey with Siva Afi, my dad started teaching me when I was 11 years old. And then I did my first competition when I was 13. I was in the intermediate division. 13, 14, I only placed second place both years. And then when I was 15 years old, my dad, he said he had a dream that I was going to go to the senior division, but the senior division starts from 18 and up. And so when my dad told me to move up to the senior division, I was like, oh, I'm not even ready. I never even placed. And, it was probably one of the greatest decisions, from my dad and from me and my dad to make that decision to move up. So I won my first senior division world championship when I was 15 years old. And then I have a total of 5 world championships. And altogether, throughout all the competitions, I've won over 19 titles.
Yes. It must be very inspirational for the young ones that are here today for the workshop. Tell us a little bit about what's happening here.
So we're having a workshop here today. Very excited. For me, our workshop, we're going to speak more on the mental aspect. For me, the mentality of what you're going out there and representing is just as important as the spinning. Yeah, we always got to remember that, we're representing not only ourselves out there, but our parents. I always have a saying, do it for your last name, not your first. So when we go out on the stage, we're representing our parents, we're representing our ancestors and everyone behind us. Yeah, that support us. Yeah.
Amazing. And what do you think about, this workshop being held here in Aotearoa for the New Zealand-based youngsters learning about their culture?
And I'm just very blessed to be here in Aotearoa. I always wanted to be here, and now I'm here. And I'm very, very excited for the young generation that's starting to, this is the generation that's picking up the torch and moving it forward. So I'm very excited for them and their future endeavors on everything that they're going to be doing and going through, because I've experienced it, and I know it's all blessings. For me, I encourage learning your roots, your culture. Growing up, especially in the mainland, in America. For me, my family, we were kind of especially on the northern side, my family, and then we had one more family, was the only Samoans there. But it's just my dad and my uncle were out that way. So, the only thing that brought me closer to my culture was through dancing, and so I truly encourage to be proud of who you are, be proud of the amazing blessings that's come out of our islands, and to just keep on pushing. You know, it's always been my testimony that everywhere that I've ever been in this world, you know, Japan, Australia, now New Zealand, Tahiti, Samoa, all throughout the whole United States, it's always been my testimony that everywhere that I've ever been was because of Fire Knife Dancing.
That's Pacific Waves for today. To listen back, head over to rnzi.com/programs. We're also on Spotify, Apple, and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, so far, so far.